I didn't even know there was an arcade at the Mall of America. I mean, I've been there a million times. Who hasn't? It's a Midwest landmark. But when renovations started near the East Wing, the one with the shuttered department store, they unearthed something that wasn't on any blueprint. A dusty sign hanging above a half-hidden staircase read, "The Electric Kingdom." The letters glowed faintly, though the power had supposedly been cut decades ago. My friend Tyler and I heard about it from some mall workers at the food court. We weren't supposed to go down there, obviously. There was caution tape and everything. But Tyler's always had a knack for finding trouble. He convinced me it would be a great story to tell over drinks later. I wish now I'd stayed upstairs. The air was different down there. Heavy. Stale. Like an old basement that hadn't been aired out in years. Dust floated in beams of flickering fluorescent light as we stepped inside. The arcade was perfectly preserved, like a time capsule from the 80s. Neon lights buzzed faintly along the walls, and rows of cabinets blinked in eerie synchronization. Pac-Man, Galaga, Space Invaders. But the names weren't quite right. The font was familiar, but the titles had been warped. Phantom Pack, Invaders Within, Soul Dig. "Whoa," Tyler said, his voice echoing too loudly in the stillness. "This place is insane." I barely heard him. My eyes were drawn to a cabinet at the far end of the room, isolated from the others. Its screen glowed a deep, pulsating red, casting ominous shadows across the wall. Above the screen, the name of the game was etched in jagged letters. Fear Seeker. I don't know why I walked straight to it. Something about the glow seemed magnetic. Tyler followed, nudging me. "Looks like it's calling your name, man." I hesitated but slid a token, one conveniently sitting on the machine's ledge, into the slot. The screen flickered and a message appeared. "Face your fear." The joystick was cold and stiff as I moved my character, a shadowy figure with vague human features through a labyrinth of corridors. The screen seemed to breathe, like the red light was alive. The sound effects weren't blips and bloops, they were whispers. Faint voices murmured my name, growing louder as my character turned each corner. "What are you afraid of?" Tyler teased, watching over my shoulder. I didn't answer. The game knew. The screen blurred, then sharpened into a scene I recognized immediately. My childhood bedroom. My heart dropped. My deepest fear wasn't spiders or heights or anything simple. It was something I hadn't spoken about in years. Something I'd buried deep. The whispers grew louder. The screen zoomed in on the closet door. It creaked open and something stepped out. A shadowy figure with hollow, glowing eyes. The same figure I used to see standing by my bed when I was 7. "Quit screwing with me, Tyler," I snapped, but he looked as freaked out as I felt. The joystick resisted my movements as the figure came closer, the screen shaking violently. I was losing. Suddenly, the game over screen didn't feel like an option. It felt like a death sentence. With a final desperate move, I managed to escape the room. The screen faded back to red and a score appeared. 4,326. That's it. Tyler laughed nervously. "You didn't even crack 5,000. A chime sounded and the machine spat out a slip of paper. Tyler grabbed it before I could. His face turned pale. "What the hell is this?" I took it from him. Written in sharp, blocky letters were the words, "Left index finger." "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but my voice wavered. The moment the words left my mouth, a sharp pain shot through my left hand. I screamed, clutching it as blood dripped onto the cabinet. My index finger was gone. Not severed, just gone, like it had never been there. Tyler stumbled back, knocking into another machine. "This isn't funny, man. What the hell is happening?" I didn't have an answer. The whispers were louder now, filling the entire room. Other machines flickered to life, each one displaying distorted images. A drowning man gasping for air, a woman screaming as something unseen dragged her away, a child sobbing in the dark. Tyler panicked, slamming tokens into the nearest machine. "I'm getting us out of here," he shouted. His game looked different from mine, a haunted forest filled with gnarled trees and glowing eyes. He moved his character with frantic precision, but it was clear he was losing. The whispers shifted, merging into a low growl. Tyler's screen flashed red, and his character was caught by a creature with too many arms. His score appeared 2,154. The same chime sounded. A slip of paper emerged. He refused to take it, but the words appeared on the screen instead. Eyesight. No way, Tyler stammered, backing away. He tripped, falling to the ground as his screams echoed through the room. His eyes turned milky white, his pupils disappearing. He clawed at his face, sobbing, I can't see. I pulled him to his feet, dragging him toward the exit. But the arcade wasn't letting us go. The machines lined up in a perfect glowing corridor, their screens displaying the same words, play or forfeit. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Tyler clung to me, blind and trembling. The walls seemed to close in, the air growing colder with every step. I turned back toward the Fear Seeker machine. Its screen blinked. Round 2? I didn't have a choice. My hands shook as I grabbed the joystick. This time, the game didn't waste time with labyrinths or corridors. The screen showed a hospital room, sterile and bright. My mother was there, hooked up to machines. She looked at me, her eyes filled with disappointment. Why didn't you save me? She asked, her voice echoing from the speakers. Tears blurred my vision as I fought to keep the joystick steady. The screen blurred again, morphing into a version of myself, older and hollow-eyed, staring at a mirror. You're nothing without me, it said. The game didn't feel like a game anymore. It was pulling pieces of me out, dissecting my soul. My character collapsed on the screen, consumed by shadowy tendrils. My score appeared, 3,921. I didn't wait for the chime. I grabbed Tyler and bolted for the stairs. The machines screamed in protest, their screens flashing violent static. The walls trembled, and the floor seemed to shift beneath us. We barely made it out. As soon as we crossed the threshold, the entrance sealed itself, the neon sign flickering one last time before going dark. I haven't been back to the Mall of America since. Tyler, he didn't make it. His mind unraveled in the weeks that followed, the blindness spreading into something worse. He wouldn't stop mumbling about the arcade, about the voices and the shadows. Sometimes I wonder if it's still down there, waiting for the next curious fool to stumble in. I try to tell myself it's gone, that it's buried under concrete and steel. But in the dead of night, I can still hear the faint hum of neon lights. And I still wake up, clutching the stump where my finger used to be. I've worked maintenance at the Mall of America for 5 years now. It's not a bad gig, steady hours, decent pay, but the place has a strange vibe once the crowds clear out. During the day, it's a sea of life, families, tourists, teenagers. But at night, when the shops shut down and the lights dim, it feels wrong. Too quiet for somewhere so massive. The air grows colder, heavier, and every sound echoes like the building is alive and listening. It started on a Tuesday night. The mall was nearly empty, save for a few straggling employees closing up. I was doing my usual rounds near the east wing when I heard it, a low, wailing noise. At first, I thought it was the wind blowing through a gap in the vents. But then I noticed the pattern. It wasn't random. It rose and fell like someone or something was crying out in pain. The sound seemed to come from beneath my feet, beneath the mall. I radioed my supervisor, Greg, to see if anyone else had reported hearing anything strange. He brushed it off, telling me it was probably just the HVAC system acting up again. "You're already down there, right? Just check it out," he said. His tone was casual, but there was something behind his words. Hesitation? Unease? I couldn't tell. I didn't like going into the sublevels. No one did. The tunnels down there were built during the mall's construction, supposedly for maintenance access and emergency evacuations, but over time they'd fallen out of use. The official story was that they were too costly to maintain, but the way employees whispered about the ghost tunnels, you'd think it was something more sinister. Even the maps we were given only showed part of the network. The rest? Just blank spaces. Management liked to act like they didn't exist. I took the service elevator down, gripping my flashlight tight. As the doors opened, a wave of cold air hit me, carrying with it a metallic, almost coppery smell. My stomach turned. The sublevels were dimly lit, the overhead fluorescence flickering erratically. The sound of the elevator doors sliding shut behind me made me jump. The wailing was louder now, reverberating off the concrete walls. I followed it down a narrow corridor, my boots crunching on debris. The walls here were covered in grime, with streaks of rust and water stains forming strange patterns. As I turned a corner, my flashlight caught something on the ground, a dark, sticky stain trailing along the floor. I crouched down and ran a gloved finger through it. Blood. Fresh. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but my curiosity, or maybe some deep, stupid sense of duty, kept me moving forward. The blood trail led deeper into the labyrinth, past old storage rooms filled with dusty crates and disused equipment. The smell was stronger now, almost overpowering, and then I saw them. The first pile was small, a few rats, their bodies twisted and mangled, their fur matted with blood. But as I moved further, the piles grew larger. Birds, raccoons, even a stray dog, all mutilated in ways that made my stomach churn. Their bodies were arranged in strange, deliberate patterns, circles and spirals that seemed to radiate outward like some kind of grotesque ritual. The walls were worse. Cryptic symbols were scrawled across the concrete, painted in what looked like blood. Eyes, spirals, jagged lines that seemed to writhe if I stared too long. My flashlight began to flicker, the beam casting unsettling shadows that danced across the walls. That's when I noticed the whispers. At first, I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me, but the longer I listened, the clearer they became. Faint, overlapping voices speaking in a language I couldn't understand. They didn't come from one direction. They were everywhere, surrounding me. My hands were trembling as I gripped my flashlight tighter. The blood trail led to a set of double doors at the end of the hall. The metal was dented and scratched, as if something had tried to claw its way through. The whispers grew louder as I approached, and for a moment, I swore I heard my name. I pushed the doors open and immediately wished I hadn't. The room beyond was massive, a cavernous space lit by an unnatural red glow. The light came from a circle of candles arranged on the floor, their flames unnaturally still. Around the circle stood 6 figures, cloaked in black robes that seemed to absorb the light. They were chanting, their voices low and guttural, the sound making my skin crawl. In the center of the circle was an altar, roughly hewn from stone. On it lay a body, human, I think. It was hard to tell. The limbs were broken and bent at impossible angles, the face obscured by a burlap sack. Blood dripped from the altar, pooling on the floor and forming intricate patterns that pulsed faintly, as if alive. I tried to back away, but my boot scuffed against the floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot. One of the figures stopped chanting and turned. Though it had no face, I felt its gaze pierce through me. Slowly, it began to move toward me, its feet, or what passed for feet, making no sound. The others followed, their chanting growing louder and more frenzied. Panic surged through me. I turned and ran, the whispers now a cacophony of screams. The tunnel seemed longer than before, the walls closing in around me. My flashlight died completely, plunging me into darkness. I could hear them behind me, their footsteps impossibly fast, their guttural voices echoing in my ears. I don't know how I made it back to the elevator. My hands fumbled for the button, slamming it repeatedly as their shadows closed in. The doors finally slid shut, and I collapsed against the wall, gasping for air. As the elevator ascended, the lights flickered. and for a moment, I thought I saw one of the figures standing in the corner, its faceless head tilting toward me. When the doors opened, I stumbled out into the brightly lit main floor. I was shaking, covered in sweat, my mind racing. I tried to tell security what I had seen, but they didn't believe me. The sublevels are off limits, they said. You shouldn't have been down there. The next morning, I quit. I couldn't go back, not after what I'd seen. But the nightmares followed me. I hear the whispers sometimes late at night, and when I close my eyes, I see the symbols, the altar, the faceless figures. There's something down there beneath the Mall of America. Something ancient, something hungry, and it's waiting. The Mall of America has always been my escape. When life gets overwhelming, I come here. It's a city within a city, a place where you can lose yourself for hours and emerge with a little less weight on your shoulders. I'd spent countless weekends wandering its sprawling halls, but that day was different. That day, I found something I wish I hadn't. It started innocently enough. My friend Sarah and I had planned to meet up for lunch, and I arrived early. The air outside was biting, but inside the mall buzzed with warmth and life. I had time to kill, so I wandered aimlessly, letting the crowd carry me along. That's when I saw it. A new shop, tucked into a corner I didn't remember noticing before. Its name, Obscurus, was spelled out in ornate, curling gold letters above the door. The storefront was plain, almost modest, but a soft golden light spilled out, pooling on the tiled floor. It had an odd allure, like it didn't belong there but demanded to be seen. Without thinking, I stepped inside. The moment I entered, the noise of the mall vanished. The silence pressed against me, heavy and oppressive, like the air itself had thickened. The scent of sandalwood and something metallic lingered in the air, faint but unmistakable. Shelves lined the walls, filled with strange, beautiful things. Intricately carved jewelry, antique clocks, shimmering silks that seemed to shift colors in the light. It was mesmerizing, but something felt off. I wandered deeper, my footsteps echoing on the polished floor. That's when I noticed the price tags. The first item to catch my eye was a silver bracelet, delicate and impossibly intricate. The tag attached to it stopped me in my tracks. Emma Peterson, your confidence. My stomach twisted. My name is Emma Peterson. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Maybe it was some kind of gimmick, a quirky way to personalize their merchandise. But as I scanned the shelves, my unease deepened. A leather journal. Emma Peterson, your voice. A music box. Emma Peterson, your childhood memories. A pair of sunglasses. Emma Peterson, your mother's health. The tags weren't just strange, they were impossible. How could they know my name? How could they assign these bizarre prices? I backed away, my heart pounding. That's when I noticed something even more chilling. The bracelet I'd first seen was gone. In its place sat a pair of golden scissors, the blades glinting in the soft light. The new tag read, Emma Peterson, your lifespan. My throat tightened, I turned and ran, the oppressive silence following me out the door. I tried to shake it off. The mall is enormous, with stores coming and going all the time. It was probably just some kind of avant-garde boutique, I told myself, though the thought did little to calm my nerves. By the time I met up with Sarah, I had almost convinced myself it wasn't worth worrying about. We grabbed lunch at one of the food court's many restaurants, chatting about work and life as the crowds bustled around us. I didn't mention the store. I didn't want Sarah to think I was crazy. But later, as we strolled through another section of the mall, I froze. There it was again, Aurum Obscura. This time it was sandwiched between a sunglass hut and a shoe store. My breath caught. The golden light spilling from the doorway was brighter, more inviting, but I felt no pull to enter, only dread. "Emma, what's wrong?" Sarah asked, following my gaze. "Do you see that shop?" I pointed. She frowned, confused. "What shop?" I turned to her, my heart racing. "Right there, Aurum Obscura. You don't see it?" Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to concern. "There's nothing there." I looked back, my stomach twisting. The shop was unmistakably there, its golden glow casting eerie shadows on the floor. "You really don't see it?" "Emma, are you feeling okay? Maybe you're just tired." I wanted to argue, to make her see, but the words caught in my throat. The shop felt like it was waiting for me, calling me. My legs moved on their own, pulling me forward. "Emma, wait," Sarah called after me, but her voice faded as I stepped through the door. This time, the shop felt different. The air was colder, the golden light dimmer, almost sickly. The items on the shelves seemed sharper, their edges jagged, their beauty tainted by something sinister. My name was everywhere, etched on every tag. Emma Peterson, your sanity. Emma Peterson, your ability to love. Emma Peterson, your sight. At the center of the shop, on a pedestal, sat an ornate black box. Its surface was smooth, gleaming, and cold. The tag dangling from it made my stomach churn. Emma Peterson, your existence. I reached for the box, my fingers trembling. It felt as if it were pulling me closer, a magnetic force I couldn't resist. The moment I touched it, a voice whispered behind me, "It's beautiful, isn't it?" I spun around, but no one was there. The shadows on the walls seemed to writhe, twisting into shapes that were almost human but too grotesque to be real. The voice came again, soft but insistent. "You've been chosen, Emma." "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "I don't want this." The shadows seemed to laugh, a low, guttural sound that vibrated through my chest. The air grew heavier, the walls closing in. The box pulsed in my hands, its hum turning into a deafening roar. My knees buckled and I fell to the floor. When I woke, I was back in the middle of the food court. The mall was bustling as if nothing had happened. My head throbbed and my hands were shaking. I reached into my bag, half expecting to find the box, but it was gone. I tried to tell myself it was over, that it was just a nightmare. But as I stood, something caught my eye. At the edge of the food court, barely visible among the crowd, was Aurum Obscura. Its golden light was brighter than ever, pulsing like a heartbeat. I turned to leave, but every corridor led me back to the same spot. The exits were gone. The mall had become a labyrinth, endless and inescapable. The shop was always there, waiting, no matter which direction I went. And the voice, it followed me. "You can't run, Emma. You belong to us now." I don't know how long I've been here. Days, weeks, time doesn't matter anymore. The store appears everywhere I go, its shelves filled with pieces of me I've already lost. Every time I step inside, I lose a little more. But someday the price will be too high, and I'll have nothing left to give. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed these Mall of America horror stories. If you did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'll be posting twice a week with more haunting content. Hit the bell icon so you're always the first to know when a new story drops. Your support helps so much, so thank you, and I'll see you in the shadows.